I am Jessie Stephen. I am with Gunta Business and the moderator for today's event. I would like to acknowledge we are on the traditional territory of the Kwäch'än and the Kwanlin First Nation. Welcome to the members of media who are joining us virtually and in person for today's Eagle Mine Environmental Update. I am honored to be joined today by Chief Donna Moses, Councillor Helena Moses, and the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk's technical team, Bill Slater, Cord Hamilton, and Mark O'Donoghue. Following our remarks from Chief Hope and the technical team, we will go to the media present in the room and then on Zoom for a round of questions. We will call you by name and you will each have the opportunity to ask one question. If time permits, our second round of questions may occur. Post-event, media may follow up with email questions to vgresponse@nndfn.com for further questions and clarification. Before we begin, I would like to verify that everyone on Zoom can hear us, and if any of the reporters are having any trouble, please contact Gunta Virtual Events for technical support at 867-334-2448 or email admin@guntabusiness.com, and that's Gunta. Okay. I'm honored to introduce our first speaker, Chief Donna Hope, a member of the Crow Clan, First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk's first female chief, elected on April 19th, 2023. Chief Hope has a diploma with honors in renewable resource management, a Bachelor of Science in Northern Environmental and Conservation Science, and an Indigenous Governance and Public Administration certificate with honors. Chief Hope has almost 2 decades of experience in the environmental and conservation field. I will now hand it over to Chief Hope.
Kimisothan. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk Eagle Gold Environmental Update. It's important for everyone to understand our long history of resilience, which has brought us here today. In recognition of that, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the lands of the Kwanlin First Nation and the Kwäch'än, and send them masicho for allowing us the space to meet on their traditional lands. And I also acknowledge all of the Yukon First Nations chiefs, the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk citizens, and to everyone else online residing in other areas joining us over Zoom today. We'd like to start our meeting off in a good way and ask Elder Chuck Hume to open with a prayer. Masi.
Thank you, Kunishish. I'm going to say the prayer in my first language. I was raised up in the Dalton Post region, and my grandmother spoke Tlingit and Southern Shoshone, and I'll say the prayer in Southern Shoshone. Kunishish, Tajan Garathi, Shokathan Gahuchena, Dajanshu Danan Kwanlin Danhua Ta Anshu Kwanan Shothan Kokan Taje What Dajanshu Garathi Shokuchena What Shu Ajudanan Shokathan Kokani Ta Shona Dajan Shona Chugarat Somei or Shokuchena. What I said in my language is thank you to Kwanlin done. We are not owners of this land. We are caretakers of our land, of our water, of our air. We look after this land, so it looks after us as our mothers cared for us. We're born on this land, and we'll return back to this land. As First Nations people, we respect the true way of our living. Thank you very much, Kunishish. Thank you.
Masicho for that. Our treaty protects our stewardship of our traditional territory. Negotiated between governments over decades, the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk Dun final agreement is supposed to be the basis for a path forward, a means of reconciliation, true collaboration through co-management. In the spirit and intent, our ancestors felt that we'd be working together, collaboratively, in cooperation, to seek agreement in the best ways possible moving forward for everyone, with everyone's aspects being considered for generations to come. Instead, today, our nation is grieving the impacts of the Victoria Gold disaster, which is a clear and present danger to our culture, well-being, and our way of life. Victoria Gold are failing to do what is needed to protect our lands and waters from the poisons flowing from Victoria Gold. This is unacceptable. Immediate steps are needed to address the millions of liters of toxic cyanide and other contaminants spreading from the mine site. Every mitigation measure must be implemented to protect the lands, waters, fish, wildlife, and the people impacted by this disaster. We have no confidence that Vic Gold is in financially stable enough position to repair the environmental damages its failures have caused, and the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk Dun has lost confidence in their ability to manage the response to this disaster. Yesterday, we filed an application in court to have a receivership appointed to take over management of the Victoria Gold site. A change in control at the site is desperately required. This action in court is the only way that we can ensure the steps necessary to mitigate this disaster are being taken. We understand the Yukon government filed a similar action in court. We are pleased the government has taken this and at last heeded the First Nations call for the appointment of a receiver. We support Yukon government's application. It is much needed and it is much overdue. Yukon government must also institute a moratorium on all mining activity on our traditional territory, unless and until we can confirm such a disaster will never happen again. Yukon government must also immediately establish a public inquiry under the Public Inquiries Act to get to the bottom of how this disaster happened and to ensure the necessary changes are made to ensure that it never happens again. This disaster is one in seemingly endless line of mining disasters in the Yukon. Faro, Keno Hill, Mount Nansen, Wolverine, Minto, and now Victoria Gold. When will government recognize that the status quo is broken? When will government recognize that business as usual is literally killing our people and destroying our way of life? Our nation will continue to do everything in our power to protect our community and all Yukoners from this disaster. We cannot and will not stand idly by as this disaster unfolds. We must continue to defend our rights that have been rightfully ours since time immemorial. We will never stop fighting to preserve our way of life for now and for future generations. I will introduce Bill Slater, and he will talk about the update next. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Chief Hope. My name is Bill Slater. I'm a consultant based here in Whitehorse. I work in the environmental technical fields and have worked with the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk. I've had the privilege of working with the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk for almost 20 years as an advisor on a variety of mining and other development projects, including the Victoria Gold Project from the outset of their planning and permitting. Like Chief Hope, I'd like to acknowledge that we're here on the lands of the Kwanlin First Nation and the Kwäch'än Council, and thank them for their hospitality. I will say that I'm going to give a brief presentation here. I guess before I start that, I want to reference back to Chief Hope's comments about the resiliency of the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk. And responding to this disaster has taken a tremendous amount of resiliency and will as the First Nation moves forward. The people you see here at the table today, Chief Hope, Councillor Moses, the technical people, the rest of council, the government staff at the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk, some of whom are here in the room today, since June 24th, have spent their lives working on this project. All of those people were busy people before this started. They had many other crises to manage, but suddenly Victoria Gold has landed us a crisis that everybody has to spend their whole focus on. And that speaks to the resiliency of the people involved, and recognizing that there are many, many other things that are priorities that need to get done. The presentation I'm going to give you is fairly brief, and it expresses my understandings and opinions about what's happened and is happening at Eagle Gold since June 24th. It's all based on my experience and the information that I've received about that. The Eagle Gold Mine, as Chief Hope mentioned, is situated in the traditional territory of the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk. It's in a stream in the valley of a stream called Dublin Gulch, which drains to Haggard Creek, and then on to the South McQuestion River, the Stewart River, and eventually to the Yukon River. The South McQuestion River Valley is a critical traditional use and cultural area for the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk, including an important grayling fishery at the confluence of Haggard Creek and the South McQuestion River, only a few kilometers from the site. And you can put that fishery, any kind of fishery, in context, recognizing that people from the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk have long relied on salmon. And salmon, of course, Canada and the United States of America have agreed to a moratorium on fishing for salmon. So suddenly these other fisheries become much more important. And that's what's at risk from this disaster. It has been 7 weeks since the failure of the heap leach facility. In that time, Victoria Gold's responses have been reactive, responding to environmental contamination only after it happens. For example, collection of surface water so it does not directly discharge to Haggard Creek. We haven't observed proactive measures aimed at preventing or addressing safety or contamination issues before they reach critical conditions. We haven't seen site stabilization or physical safety actions. We haven't seen efforts at groundwater collection, except for seepage that flows directly to surface and would flow into the stream if it weren't collected. The amount of additional storage capacity constructed at the site has been negligible in comparison to what's needed. Water treatment has been ineffective at achieving a safe discharge. Victoria Gold's reactive approach has been followed by outcomes that are increasing release of contaminants and increasing risks of much greater effects. For example, Yukon government directed Victoria Gold to construct 150,000 cubic meters of additional storage capacity in mid-July to store this solution that is flowing down into the valley. Victoria Gold failed to do so. The lack of additional storage means that pump back to the heap leach facility had to be restarted. And that is now rinsing additional contaminants into the valley and into the groundwater. We have at this site continued control down, control movement, Government directed Victoria Gold to install groundwater collection wells, but Victoria Gold failed to do so, and suggested that existing groundwater monitoring and seepage collection facilities would be sufficient. This was followed by seepage of leach solution into the downstream environment. By mid-July, Dublin Gulch, downstream of the site, had cyanide concentrations above the effluent standards allowed in the water license, 10 times higher than the Canadian Water Quality Guidelines for protection of aquatic life. In Haggart Creek, cyanide concentrations are at or above the Canadian Water Quality Guidelines. These are streams that had no cyanide in them, non-detectable numbers before this started. The pathways for groundwater contamination and movement aren't well understood, but will likely continue to affect Haggart Creek unless additional measures are put in place. Yukon government provided at least 2 directions to the company about developing water treatment with capacities up to 15,000 to 20,000 cubic meters per day. Victoria Gold's initial water treatment efforts, including use of the system that was on site at the time of the failure, one which First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk had expressed significant concerns about, they had negligible effect on water quality. Victoria Gold went on to propose a series of different water treatment procedures during July. Victoria Gold's chosen water treatment was followed by discharge of inadequately treated water and death of fish. Victoria Gold collected 68 dead fish, grayling, sculpin, burbot, in Haggart Creek, following a discharge from the water treatment system on July 31st to August 2nd. According to news reports as recently as August 12th, Victoria Gold's CEO was suggesting that temperature changes might be the reason for the death of fish, even though Victoria Gold's own monitoring showed results that the treatment plant was discharging water more than 6 times the effluent standard for cyanide. In response to the death of fish, DFO directed Victoria Gold to install fish fences to keep fish out of affected areas and to remove fish from affected areas. This causes further add-on effects on the aquatic ecosystems and First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk's traditional uses and rights. The lack of effective water treatment also means that existing storage on site is almost full. That includes the dynamic storage that they created by starting to pump solution back onto the heap again on July the 14th. If not addressed, this lack of storage could lead to discharge of contaminated solution directly. The lack of proactive measures to provide a safe working environment in key locations means that measures for groundwater collection, solution storage, and water treatment are either not possible or they're constrained. The same safety concerns create constraints on monitoring. Victoria Gold not only failed to carry out the necessary measures, but it's my understanding that it also impeded Yukon government from completing those measures. The heap remains unstable, and the critical dam that was built to retain the heap is suffering erosion on its crest and downstream slope. Recirculation of solution back onto the heap exacerbates these conditions. The First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk and Yukon government have worked together on development and implementation of monitoring programs for water quality and the aquatic ecosystem, including sediment, benthic invertebrates, and fish. The aim of the programs is to understand current, short-term, and long-term conditions. Monitoring programs for other animals are being developed as well. Unfortunately, those monitoring programs for on-site and near-site conditions have been constrained by Victoria Gold's failure to address safety concerns in the way that was ordered by Yukon government or by cooperating with Yukon government to readily address them. Since July 4th, First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk's technical teams have had good cooperation, ongoing discussions and information sharing with Yukon government and its technical teams in developing a response plan. Victoria Gold's technical experts, on the other hand, have only participated in 2 meetings with the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk's technical team on July 15th and 16th. Information has not been shared transparently and mostly based on specific requests or reporting requirements established by Yukon government. That's all I have as far as a presentation. We will move to some questions. I do want, before we do that, to provide an opportunity for the other members of our technical team to introduce themselves and a bit about their expertise. So we'll start with Mark O'Donnell, who's sitting right next to me here.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Mark O'Donoghue. I live in Mayo. For about 26 years, I was the regional biologist for the 3 Northern Shoshone communities. I retired last fall, but since then I've been working with First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Cord Hamilton. I'm an independent consulting engineer operating out of Whitehorse. I'm also, I've been involved in this project through other capacity for about as long as Bill, since the early, I think 2012 or 2013. Have a lot of experience with reviewing the plans of this operator. And I'm providing advice to Na-Cho Nyäk in relation to geotechnical engineering and water management, which are obviously very critical aspects of the response to what's happened there.
Thanks, Cord. And I'll offer Farzad Moham, who's online, also to provide an introduction, if you can, please.
Thank you, and thank you to all of our speakers. We will, oh, sorry, on Zoom. Go ahead, sorry.
Hello, everyone. My name is Farzad Moham. I'm a chemical materials engineer. I've had the privilege of working with the Na-Cho Nyäk First Nations for the past 2.5 years, specifically on the Victoria Gold, Eagle Gold project regarding the cyanide detoxification system. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you to all of our speakers. We will now move into the question and answer session. A reminder to reporters on Zoom, please remember to mute and unmute yourselves. We will first go to the reporters in the room and then on Zoom. Please line up at the speaker's mic and introduce yourself and state the name of your media outlet that you're representing today. And the speaker mic is just there.
Hi, my name is Macklin Link. I'm with CKRW. I'm wondering if I can get a response. The Premier said that he won't halt mining activity for economic and legal reasons. I'm curious what you think about that reasoning.
We would like the halt until we figure out what is going on and make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Hi, my name is Sarah with Radio Canada. With YG filing a similar request yesterday night, I was just wondering if it goes forward, are you open to a co-management of the site?
Yes, we've actually been insisting on that since day one. According to our agreements, that's the relationship that we should be having in the Yukon within our traditional territory. So we definitely support a co-management cleanup of the site.
Am I allowed to follow up? Yes, perfect. From the 3 measures that were announced with YG last week, you said that you would like to have like a full moratorium on the mining activities, but on the other 2 measures that were announced, is it enough to address your concern, you think?
It is for now, but we need to work collaboratively together to reestablish a better regime moving forward.
Thank you.
So it's Kai from the Yukon Star, and just wondering, so what do you think about, or why that the YG actually filed the receivership in Ontario, and what could that tell you?
I'm not familiar with their process. We've only heard about it just recently as well, but we support the takeover of the site. It needs to be done, and we're ready to work collaboratively to make sure that the cleanup gets done.
And can I have a follow-up?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. So just want to clarify that, I mean, the court files being happen in Ontario, and since we have a court here as well, and what do you think the potential reason for that?
I'm not sure, and I can't comment on that.
You filed a receivership, and from my understanding, Vic Gold has been resistant to this, and they want to stay on site and clean it up. I guess what next steps will you be taking to ensure you can kind of get them off of this and the proper people can come in and do what they need to do?
We'll continue to work with Yukon government and support their efforts in taking over receivership. That's what we've been asking for since day one, is a collaborated effort to make sure that the best efforts are done towards the cleanup.
Can I have a follow-up?
Yes.
I guess I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on the 68 fish that were found at the Vic Gold site recently.
Very disappointed that it came to that, but we're still waiting on the results to find out exactly what that was from, whether it was from the groundwater seepage or from the release itself. So,
Thank you.
Hi, Jackie Hong with CBC Yukon. Chief Hope, I was wondering first off, Bill Slater mentioned the importance of McQuestion. You've mentioned the importance of the land. What have you been hearing from citizens and folks in Mayo about the impact that this has had? And what are some of the worries and concerns you're hearing from citizens on the ground?
Citizens are really worried about hunting is coming up. We're in hunting season now. The biggest thing is we're fighting an invisible war, and they can't see the hazards that have come out of the disaster. And we'll work together with Yukon government to make sure that we cover all of that, including we have a good relationship with Mary already through our history of working with contaminants with her. So I look forward to working with her again in those realms to ensure that we can at least give some comfort to our citizens as we monitor going into the future.
And I have a follow-up question. I believe you mentioned this in a press release, but CEO John McConnell has been speaking to media. When he was speaking to CBC, he mentioned that he believed that any environmental impacts, if any, would be minor. With the fish death, as mentioned earlier, he said it was temperature or I think chlorine. He admits that the relationship with the First Nation is strained, but I'm wondering if you have had any direct conversations with John McConnell and just your thoughts on the comments that he's been making to the media about the severity of the situation and what degree of control Victoria Gold has over it.
We have been requesting meetings to align with our CBA, the Comprehensive Benefit Agreement, with those relationships. And the only time that we have seen John McConnell was on June 26th. That morning, he came and gave an update to council and our elders, and we have not heard, or I have not heard from him since.
Thank you. We will now move to the reporters on Zoom, and we will start with Radio Taiga. Do you have a question?
No, I have no question. Thank you.
Okay. We'll now move to Yukon News.
Yes, hello there. Jim Elliott from the Yukon News. Am I being heard in the room there?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I was just wondering, we've heard a fair bit about the importance of that groundwater monitoring or interdiction work that's been planned for weeks now. Have you received a progress update from the territorial government about the activities of its contractor on the site, who my understanding is constructing a safety berm that will allow that work to go forward?
I'm going to let our experts take that. They've been on site and can answer that better than I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. It's Bill Slater. So the status of the safety berm, as we understand it, is that Yukon government mobilized a contractor to site about 3 weeks ago. It was a Saturday, I think, a little over 3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. I might have the timing wrong. And the contractor wasn't able to conduct work on site, as we understand it, because Victoria Gold wouldn't allow them to work under their primary contractor role at the site from a health and safety perspective. And so they demobilized from site, and that work on that safety berm has not progressed. And that is constraining other activities to respond to the groundwater issue, which was the first issue that you identified. It is our understanding that that Yukon this week is working on getting contractors in place and on site to drill some wells in areas where they can access safely outside of some of the exclusion zones related to the safety issue. So we're hopeful that that is progressing this week.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. We'll now move to Toronto Resources. Okay, we'll now move to the Canadian Press.
Hi, good morning. This is Ashley from CP. I just would like to understand the grounds for the application that you've made in Yukon Supreme Court. Is the First Nation considered a creditor in this case, or are you applying based on your self-governing agreements and the UFA? Like, what do you argue gives you the authority to ask for this receiver?
The land is, we're stewards of the land, and it's our traditional territory.
Do you have a follow-up, Ashley?
Yeah, I wonder if does the First Nation have folks working on the site, and are you aware of the class action lawsuit that is in process. And I'm just wondering if you're involved with that at all.
No, we don't have anything to do with that, and I'm not familiar with any of the.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to H7K Communications. Do you have a question? Okay, we'll move now to the Globe and Mail.
Thanks for this. I've actually got like 50 questions, but I'll try and, is it just one or two we're allowed to ask? I'll just ask.
One with a follow-up.
One with a follow-up, okay. The constraints of these kinds of events, eh? So just for Chief Hope, do you think there's any scenario under which the site gets cleaned up and environmentally things are a lot better and the mine restarts at some point in the future? Do you think that's something that could happen? And would you tolerate it as a First Nation for Victoria Gold or anyone else really to start up this mine?
We have been stating from the beginning that we're not against mining. We want it done sustainably in a responsible way. So that would have to be discussed within our citizenry again in light of the disaster that happened.
Got it. Thank you for that. And then I'm not sure if this is for you, Chief, or perhaps one of the experts. Does anyone have any even rough idea of to do this remediation and cleanup properly, how long it will actually take, and any estimation at all of like how much money it might cost, and whether that will be sort of more than the 103 million that the Yukon government holds in a surety bond?
Yeah, hello, it's Cord Hamilton. I'll take on that question. And certainly, you know, we've put our minds to that at a very high level, as have experts from Yukon government who are quite experienced in this. And certainly the estimates that have been conveyed to us are, we're looking at, you know, something in the magnitude of order of $100 million to address this failure. And that is not the cost of closing the mine, of rehabilitating the mine writ large. This is, you know, a order of magnitude estimate of what the costs may be incurred by whoever is operating the site to you know, reestablish control of the heap and address the impacts, the physical impacts and the environmental impacts of just that failure. Again, that's entirely different than the orderly closure of the mine as is planned according to a closure plan. So it is a very significant and a material cost. This is not a trivial undertaking for this company or for that matter for Yukon government. It is a significant material cost to recover from this. Oh, sorry, and the duration. It's very early at this stage to understand exactly how long it will take to reestablish control. In particular, you know, in 60 days, that valley is going to be white. Things are going to be freezing. We have to be prepared for freshet in the spring. It's difficult to say, obviously, with potentially and hopefully a change in control of the site. There has been a lot of planning between ourselves and Yukon government as to what primary actions need to be taken at this stage, but they're really just the first level of response to the disaster. We're just getting our minds together, collaboratively looking up and saying, well, where do we need to be in 2 months and 3 months before the freshet? So certainly I wouldn't anticipate that substantial progress to stabilize the site will be completed until late fall at the very earliest. And certainly there would be ongoing requirements for additional work next spring. Again, I think that's really optimistic in terms of what can be accomplished. And it really depends on how quickly things can get started. And certainly it's 7 weeks since the disaster occurred, and we're really not where we need to be. So we're really looking forward to hopefully some substantial progress being made, but it is a long road.
It's Bill Slater. I just want to follow up on, there was one final aspect of that that you asked about, and I'll follow up on Cord's comment about duration. Just to say that, you know, if we have to deal with groundwater on this site, that is something that will go on for a lengthy period of time, and we're talking about years at least to deal with and address groundwater contamination. We don't know what the duration of that would be. And your final component of that question was about the surety bond and the adequacy of the surety bond, and that's not something that we can provide any comment on.
Thank you. So at this time, I believe that wraps up question and answer period. So due to the changes in circumstances, that concludes today's media event. Thank you to all the media for your questions, and thank you to the First Nation of Na-Cho Nyäk Chief and Council and the